Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 118 of the All in Football Fantasy Premier League show and podcast. I'm your host, the self-proclaimed FPL guru, Alex Rex. And joining me today, all on his lonesome, Scott Williams. Scott, how are you doing today?
Not bad, thank you very much. Not bad. How are you?
I'm all right, doing all right. Just reeling from Haaland triple captain, but we will talk about that very shortly. I am sure, and we've got a packed show tonight. We've got manager of the week, got manager of the month. We've got the big news that Mr. Ten Hag got fired, so we'll have a quick chat about that, and then we're going to talk about fixtures and a bit of form chat. And what do we prefer, form or fixtures, stats versus the eye test, and cover a few of those points off. So. Don't forget to like our video. Don't forget to like it on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel. Give us 5 stars. We get your podcasts from. Click the little bell icon so you get the notification when we set it live. And also follow us on social media platforms. All at Football Pod, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Yes, I did a TikTok last week. Thank you to the few thousand people that have viewed it so far. It's all gone very, very well. So let's do some league admin first of all. Let's talk about the manager of the week to start off with. Let's have a look at the man who got 81 points, or man or old woman, I don't actually know. Torian. I can't say that. Torian Selaire. Backstreet Moyes. That's an easier thing to say. Sorry if I've absolutely butchered your name. But Backstreet Moyes with 81 points. You didn't have Haaland at all. Martinez, Akanji, Van Dijk, Aït-Nouri, Mbumo, Smith Rowe, Johnson, Palmer captain, Jackson, Welbeck, and Watkins, with Ramsdale, Mitchell, and Saka for 9 points on your bench. So 81 points was good. Special shout out to the Guru for getting 78 points. I nearly won something in my own league, Scott.
Nearly.
nearly. I did look back. I won manager of the week. I think in like the second week we ever did the podcast. I don't think I've won anything ever since. That was actually the only time. Manager of the Month award. Well done to Scott Bell with Wimborne Town, 213 points. Absolutely cruised to manager of the week this year. This manager of the month this month. Got to 17 points ahead of our most famous listener, Liam Ormsby, Falcon Oak. Great shout out to you, Liam. And well done to you, having a really good season and keeping on top of it. So nice one there. Martin Murray in third place. Torian fourth. Ben Steers in fifth. The podcast AI team in sixth. So again, we'll have a quick chat about the AI side of things, and that team's been on an absolute roller coaster so far this season. Started so well, dropped off massively, and then had quite a good time. Our favourite wheel, Jason Wheel in seventh, Stephen Goodall in eighth, Kazim Amadi in ninth, and Christian Filipov in 10th. You see there, we've got the Guru in 12th, Barry in 15th. And then where were you, Scott? You weren't that far back, were you? Don't think.
88.
We were 88th this month.
Yeah, just looked. Cracking month.
Crikey. You had it's after such a good start. So yeah, interesting one. But yeah, we've got to join Ahmad, who won in September, and then also to join Charles, who won in August. The overall league standings are Sam Danby Bailey, friend of the podcast, 68 points, 596, top of the league. James Pellett there in second. Well done to you, James. Making great gains, 591. Mark Anderson, 588. Kieran Ball, 586. Same as Dennis Bjork. Long-time leader, Sam Kimoni at 579. Still well in it there, only 17 points off the top. I'm going to say it again. Torian in seventh. Charles Takaveda, former manager of the month, in eighth. Arif Khan and Ryan Walt doing well. And Scott, you're in 15th.
Yeah, not bad. I think if you look at my the position to the top five, it's only 22 points. So yeah, still very, very, very happy with that. Like I said, I thought I had a really good week, and then went down like 6 places. So.
What I do want to say about the leagues, I mean, I think I'm 1.4 million in the world. So, I mean, I'll just put, I think for the fun of it, leagues on probably a good one here. Because it's got me, you, and Baz in, plus Cully and Tom from the podcast, and Callum sneak into that one. It's actually turned into almost like a podcast league. That one, when I looked at it before, and it was just quite a good one to look at in terms of numbers. Cully obviously will drop off later in the season, as he always does. But it's really close. I mean, you're only 34 points ahead of me. Baz is only 17 behind. I think the pack is really, really tight at this very moment in time. There's a lot to play for. And I mean, my season at the moment really hasn't gone that well, I don't feel. I mean, I did look at the amount of points that I've lost by picking the wrong captains, and it's 73 points this season. I've got 2 out of 9 captaincy choices right. And that's where the points have really gone for me. I've absolutely burnt them in captaincies. It's just not worked out for me at all. But then there's other things that have gone really right. So you get a few captains right, and someone like Cole Palmer hits you for you're doing pretty well. So what do you think's gone well for you this season, Scott? Before we move on to a couple of things, anything in particular to reflect on?
I think more or less the transfers I've done have been smart kind of transfers, and they've worked out, which is obviously really important. I had cheap enablers, Rodgers and Smith Rowe from the beginning, and they've just been chipping away with some really decent returns. Obviously, Smith Rowe was on my bench this week, which didn't come on, which was unfortunate. And Rodgers only got the 1 point return, but all in all, they've done really well. Not gone too maverick with captaincy choices. I've just gone for what I thought was the smart choice every time. And then and then this week, for instance, I think I brought Visser in. I think really, really unlucky not to get 2 goals. Actually, I think it's a marginal own goal that. But yeah, brought him in, and he's returned me 10 points. And yeah, we'll obviously, Brentford got a decent run of fixtures now as well. So I've kind of jumped on him before probably others will as well now. I probably expect his price, if it hasn't already, to go up a little bit actually with the run of fixtures and the fact that he's returned 10 points this week, and I beat the curve on that one. So yeah, just steady away, nothing too silly. And one of the main things is, I don't think I may have taken a -2, but I can't imagine done too many minuses this week, this season, which is always useful. And I'm just trying to hold out as long as I can on my wild card. If I look at my team and think actually I want like 4 or 5 different players in, and obviously that's the point I'm going to wild card. I've not got to that point yet, so I've learned lessons from previous years on that.
A couple of points on that one. Looks like Vissa looks like in price is going up tomorrow. Looking at the fantasy fix predictions, 8 looks like he's going up tonight. But Vissa, Salah, and Palmer are the three that look like they're going to go up tomorrow. Yeah, some good players in there that probably people are going to be looking at moving forward. And yeah, look, I to be fair, I'm pretty happy with the transfers I've made so far as well. I think I've only taken one hit this season so far, and my thing, 100%, like I've just said, is captaincy. I've just got captaincy, and it's not been maverick picks. It's just I've lost flips between Salah and Haaland, or Saka and Salah, or Saka. It's just the way that it's been. I've done no mavericks. All my captains have been Saka, Salah, Haaland, or Palmer, or did Isak game week 1. That's just crazy. Anyway, Eric Ten Hag has been sacked by Manchester United. Scott, I wanted to read out a couple of stats to you first, and then get your take on it and what's going to happen next before we move on to some more FPL chat. Man United have just won 4 of their 14 games this season, three draws in Europe. This is their second lowest points tally after 9 games, with 11, only one better than the 2019-20 season. Only Palace and Southampton have scored fewer goals than them this season. And they have the biggest goal difference. They have the biggest difference between expected goals and goals scored in the competition. They should have scored between 6 or 7 more than what they have done, according to XG. However, Eric Ten Hag has won 2 trophies in 2 years, and after his first season was in the Champions League for the first time in a while for Man United. What's your thoughts on the whole thing?
Yeah, it's just a bit of a mess of a club, isn't it? It's been a mess of a club since Fergie left, really, and it still blows my mind. People of our age, sort of mid-30s, grew up with Man United just winning and dominating, and that was our knowledge of the Premier League was just Man United always competing, never, very rarely outside the top 3, like if not the top 2, just always competing for trophies. So Yeah, it's been handled obviously quite badly. We know that they were talking to managers in the summer. Let's be honest, if they were a tiny it was a tiny VAR call away from getting sacked after the Coventry semi-final at the end of the day. And then it must be quite frustrating as a Man United fan because then they go and put on a really, really good performance. And you beat Man City, you a lot of the time you go, yeah, we had the rub of the green, things went our way. No, just the better team that day deserved to win the FA Cup. And then you think actually, right, if he can survive the summer, they backed him. They brought the players in, a couple of his, old boys in that he's worked with previously. And I think that's a lot of it, isn't it? He's brought a lot of these old lads that he's trusted and stuff that have done the business for him at Ajax, and not not to disrespect the league, it's just a fact. The Dutch league is nowhere near as strong as the Premier League, so there's a big step up. But you'd like to think players such as the Ligt, he's played for top teams. Like he would be able to just come in and hit the ground running. Injury prone, like they seem to get a lot of players that have been injury prone as well. I think a lot of it comes down to recruitment, and it's like two steps forward, sorry, one step forward, two step back. It feels like as well. As soon as we get a bit of momentum, West Ham defeat comes, or another defeat somewhere else comes. So yeah, it's been a collective. I think now Radcliffe, obviously who's in charge of football operations, him and his group, they need to obviously get the right man in, and there's no excuses now because it's their man they're going to bring in. So actually,
Yep.
we see it so often when a new owner comes in, they want to put the stamp on a club straight away, and that's them, putting themselves on a chopping block and going like, we trust this man. But there's not a lot out there. If there was a big name out there in the summer, we all know they would have recruited. If
Yep.
Ancelotti, let's just say, was available, they would have gone and got him.
Yep.
Um,
100%.
but it's not. So yeah, it's a bit fast, and for someone that I get, Cully likes to call me a closet Man United fan. Like, I followed Man United as a '90s kid growing up because Man United won everything, and I needed a big club to support, I guess, as well as my little club in Scunthorpe. So I do still have a slight little affiliation to him, but I mean, I don't particularly support them when they're playing, but it also does. I feel like the Premier League's going to be a much better place with Man United competing at the top of the league. Um, looks like, I mean, there's a chance Pep goes at the end of the season. That's a big loss to the Premier League. So actually, if we can get some big clubs competing again, I think it's just going to be big. But yeah, massive decision now. Who they bring in, you can just see the usual. Oh, Rude's going to take over. Oh, he's going to win, have a few decent results. Oh, we'll give him it to the end of the season, and then it just falls off a cliff. So we'll see.
The Ollie cycle, do you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree with everything you just said, and yeah, as a Man United fan, I've said this on the podcast a couple of times this season. They kept hold of Ten Hag because there was no one better that they could replace him with that they thought, and also, um, he's their scapegoat. He's the owner's scapegoat. So now, like exactly like you say, they could put now it's on now the owners now have to show now they have to really go for it. And they brought Rude. Rude's been brought in. He was always going to be the replacement. He's always going to sit there on the bench. Said this again on the pod a couple of times, so anyone who's listened every week. Rude was always going to be the person that was going to take over when Ten Hag was inevitably going to get sacked, and then we were going to move on from there. And he really didn't have that much. He really didn't have that much to do. He didn't have to go. He didn't actually have to do anything other than just not be as rubbish as last season. That was literally it. He just had to not be as rubbish. And obviously, with all of the injuries and everything else, he got given a stay of execution. But now he's finally gone. So we can all move on, and hopefully the next manager does pretty well. But I wonder who it'll be, and I don't know who it'll be yet. Want to just quickly touch on the fixtures. So, and what I'm talking about here is the schedule, as it were. So the international break was after game week 7 and before game week 8. Between game week 8 and game week 9, we have the Champions League. We've got Carabao Cup this midweek. Round 4, we've got teams like Man City playing Spurs. That's probably one of the bigger games. We'll probably only be left with maybe 6 or 7 Premier League teams left in the Carabao Cup after this because a lot of them play each other. So there's quite a few Premier League ties this week in the Carabao Cup. And then we've got game week 10, Champions League midweek, and then game week 11 before the international break. So, Scott, we've got the fixtures before the international break when I have a look at the FDR. So we've got only got 10 and game weeks 10 and 11 before we have that almost natural break. And again, when I look at the fixtures, you've talked about wild cards and this, that, and they're trying to hold on for as long as possible and seeing times when you want to get 2 or 3 players in from different clubs. For me, game week 12 looks like the natural point. I look at Arsenal and I look at Aston Villa's fixtures for an example. I also look at Chelsea's fixtures. I know they've got a Villa at home in there and a Spurs away, but I don't think I'm worried at all about having Cole Palmer in either of those fixtures. I look at these fixtures here, game week 12. I look at probably getting in 2 to 3 Arsenal, probably Watkins, Rodgers, and then maybe a cheaper defender or something for Villa. And then I look at Chelsea and think about probably getting a couple of players from there as well. In terms of form, so we're going to do the form versus fixture conversation. Does it matter that Chelsea have got Man U away and Arsenal at home next? Cole Palmer is the most informed player basically in the Premier League at this very moment in time. Should we just forget that those are the next 2 fixtures? Should we not be? Should we sat here waiting, or should we just crack on and get the guy in? What do you think?
I think there's a small number of players that fall into the category of doesn't matter who they're playing, you're going to have them in your team. Haaland, Salah, 2 that come to mind. Probably these days is Saka. He just returns. And I think, to be fair, you've now got to put Cole Palmer into that category as well. So, yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm looking at Man United away and Arsenal at home. Obviously, Man United away, new manager bounce-ish could happen. Obviously, you've got Root. How many of those players were not loving life on the Ten Hag? How many will actually be a bit happier now? What's the crowd going to be like? Is that going to be pumped up? So actually, that's a lot. I think that's a lot trickier game now than it was this time yesterday. But at the same time, Man United's there to be had. Arsenal at home is an interesting one. I don't know if you've seen, but I don't know what Gabriel's injury is like. Is he out? Is he potentially going to be back? And then you've got one to keep an eye on. Like me and I were just talking about earlier, Saliba will be back. But they've seemed over the past few weeks that they're more vulnerable to goals, should I say? So for me, still, I'm looking at that as someone like you said that's not wild carded. I'm gone right. Game week 11, probably going to get my wild card in. Cole Palmer's coming in. I think. Sorry, yeah, after game week 11, should I say?
Yeah.
When that game week's completed, that is when I'm probably going to do it because I've got a few players that I'm like, I've got a Rico Lewis, for instance, like you say. So, but it's close. I think if I wasn't thinking of wildcard in game week 12 and I've maybe already used my wildcard, I don't think there's any harm in bringing in a Cole Palmer. But I guess it's who you bring him in for because he's not cheap this year, right? So are you going to bring him in for Salah? No, you're not. Brighton at home, Villa at home. It's probably not going to bring him in for that, especially when you've got Southampton away next. So if you can bring him in, would you bring him in for Saka? Newcastle away, Chelsea away? It's a tough one. But I feel like Cole Palmer is in that category now of you're kind of happy regardless of the fixture to play him, especially when no one's been keeping clean sheets really this season. But yeah, great completely looking at the FDR of the wild card being after game week 12 because we get another wild card when, Alex? Or I made that up.
No, we do. I think it's after gaming 19. I can't remember. But it's about them.
Yeah. So anyone that's maybe playing, you don't get 2 wild cards if you don't use it. You lose it or use it, correct?
Yeah, after game week 19, before game week 20.
Yeah. So you get another one anyway. So if you get to game week 12,
yes,
you've got a 7-week period. probably want to be looking at shaping your team for that 7, 8, 9 weeks anyway. So makes complete sense.
Yeah. Looking at the form players, and these are the form midfielders to start off with. No real surprises on here. Salah, Saka still at the top, coming back for that response. Brian and Bumo that we've talked about a few times on this podcast already this season, probably the most underrated players in the Premier League, delivering week in, week out. I mean, even again with his returns against Ipswich, another 15-pointer. He was quite genuinely touted by us last week on the podcast as a captain for that game week. He is just so consistent. Jorginho Ruta, I mean, out of my differential draft team, he's gone up from 0.5% owned to 1.3%. He seems to be playing relatively regularly. And then again, though, when you look at the fixtures,
Hmm.
the next two fixtures are Liverpool away and Man City at home. I'm assuming, obviously, that's a time when you would probably look at a player and go, yeah, I think the fixtures do come ahead of the form, Scott.
Yes, yeah,
um,
definitely.
No, but he's the sort of player again to pay attention to. You've got a few players here as well you have to be really careful of because someone like Jared Bowen, don't get me wrong, he returned 8, 5, and 5 at the beginning of the season, a couple of assists, but he's gone 2, 2, 12, 2, and 7. Maybe a little bit inconsistent, but Forest away and Everton at home. I mean, is Jared somebody that maybe is getting a tiny bit overlooked this season, or are we looking at it and thinking actually, well, he's only scored a couple of goals in the last. He scored 2 goals in the last 3, but was the Ipswich one a penalty as well? I know the United one was a penalty. I can't remember what the Ipswich one was. Maybe it wasn't a penalty. Um, but still, are we looking at someone like Jared Bowen with these fixtures coming up, or what?
Um, I think it's a tough one. If West Ham were, getting a few more points involved, obviously they've won 2 of the last 3 now, and they've won in sandwich in between Spurs away, which is no easy matter. But I think if West Ham were looking like a decent team and maybe not picking their points up, or were picking that, grinding the results out, you'd like actually, yeah, Jared Bowen is, he's returning. But when you're in that kind of team, it's a tougher ask. 7.4 million as well is obviously that price because he's performed really well last couple of seasons and returned a lot in FPL. It's just quite expensive when you look. He's 2 million more than Rutter, and as we say a lot of the time now, there's so many good options. I mentioned two at the start of the show. You've got you've still got Smith Rowe, and you've still got Ramsey, not Ramsey,
Rogers.
Rogers, who are still pretty cheap, and a lot cheaper than Jared Bowen too. Yeah, for me, he's not one I'd be looking at yet. Forest away says this is where you need to be a bit. This is when you need
Yeah,
to kind of be looking
yeah,
at real
totally
life as
agree.
well.
Totally agree. Yeah,
It's not a green fixture now because Forest are flying. Going to the City ground is so hard this season, so that's never a green fixture at the minute. If that was, that would probably should be like a grey fixture. And then Everton at home, you've got an Everton team that seems to have turned the corner as well. So and then you've got Newcastle away and Arsenal at home, which are never easy fixtures. So for me at the minute, no, won't be touching them. Is maybe one to look at once we get to game week 14 and that little run because those teams look a bit better, but just too expensive for me. He needs to be returning bigger returns for me to look at him at 7.4.
you've just hit the nail on the head with one of the points I was going to make about form and fixture and looking at the FDR. You have to then look at the Premier League table in particular because when you see teams, for example, so if you have a look at the home form right now, you do not want to be playing Brentford at the G-Tech. They have won 4 out of 5 games so far this season and drawn 1. They've not lost a match at the G-Tech. You've got City and Arsenal, obviously, who haven't lost at home as well. But Brighton haven't lost at home this season. They've won 2 and drawn 3. And I think Forest have only lost once at home as well so far this season, conceding only 3 goals in 4 games. This is where you have to start the FDR for me in on pretty much all of them, all of the hubs and everything. They start to become a bit dated at this point. And I know some of them on maybe Fantasy Football Scout, Fantasy Football Hub, some of them will get updated technically a bit in a bit of a better way, so the stats are a bit tighter. But you have to look at the detail. I mean, it's Forest away form. They're undefeated on the road. They've won three and drawn two, scoring 8 goals. On the road as well. And you look at Aston Villa, they've won three and drawn one. I mean, the narrative is they always win at Villa Park. Well, actually, they're undefeated on the road this season. Yeah, sure. You have to rationalise it when it comes down to the teams that they've played against. So, for example, yeah, you don't want to go to the G-Tech, but who have Brentford played at the G-Tech? Palace, Southampton, West Ham, Wolves, and Ipswich. They've got one of the worst away records other than Southampton so far this season. Yeah, but they played Liverpool, Man City, Spurs, and Man United. So I wouldn't be looking at that and going, "Well, you don't buy Brentford
Mm.
players; they've got away fixtures." Well, actually, do you know what they've done? They've got rid of all of the hard away fixtures so far this season, other than probably Villa Park, Stamford Bridge, and the Emirates. Like they've got those are out of the way. Yeah, so you've got to start. It's also where people you can't be lazy. You've got to pick the players and think about this in a more of a detailed fashion. So other players as well potentially who get overlooked. I'm not asking to ask for your opinion on. I wish Baz was here for this guy because I know he loves Facundo Buonanotte. But as a player here, he has returned in what four or five of the games that he's played. He returned against Bournemouth and Southampton in the two before. Fixtures got Ipswich and Man United the next two. I don't know. I mean, he's not the sort of player you're ever bringing in fantasy ever, but maybe a draft pick for the next couple of weeks. You just don't know, do you? Scott, forwards before we move on to move back to defenders and goalkeepers. The informed forwards. Do you still not have Chris Wood?
Oh, Chris was.
His stats aren't appearing at the moment, which is very helpful. Um, the most informed player in the game, informed player in the whole game at the moment. Yeah, 59. Danny Welbeck with 57 points so far this season. Um, strikers strikers at the top of this list: Forest, Brighton, West Ham, Ipswich, and Bournemouth.
It's fun, isn't it?
It is fun. Do you have any of these players? I've got Wood and Delap, and then I've got Haaland.
Uh,
Who are your
no,
strikers?
no. Well, I've got Watkins. I got Watkins, Haaland, and I brought Visser in this week. So pretty happy with what I've got. Yeah, Chris Wood's obviously just doing the business. He looks really sharp again. I watched the game on Friday. He looked really good in a Forest team that's flying. So yeah, fair play. Like for everyone that's got him, it's just one of those. I decided I really like Brentford's fixtures better. Um, and yeah, I think Forest have got a couple of tricky ones. I think they go to Arsenal when City away in the next 5 games.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I went for the Brentford one, and then I just I just think this is a better player than Chris Wood over the course of 38 games. I think him and Mbeumo have looked super sharp a lot. But yeah, I feel like that 1, 2, 3, 4, probably not Evan Nilsson,
Nelson,
Evan
yeah.
Nilsson, um, probably not him. But I feel like you're probably going to have one of those top four strikers sitting along with your Haaland and probably a Watkins anyway. It's just kind of which one you go for. Again, Antonio's not one I would say like. He's up there because he got a big 18 points against
Well,
Ipswich.
a big point that Scott that I wanted to make just while you're touching on this again. When you look at the form, it's more about consistency. At the end of the day, Antonio just he absolutely smashed Ipswich at home, like 1 goal and 3 assists, unbelievable. What's he done for the rest of the season? 1 assist. That's it. So you've just got to be careful and watch out for that as well. Sorry, I cut you off then, but the Antonio point was a very good one.
Yeah. So like you've got Antonio's a decent player, we know that, but he's not renowned for going on massive streaks. Maybe like 6 7 years ago he would have done, but he wouldn't be doing that especially for a really poor West Ham team. So the other the Wood, Welbeck, Delap, Visser thrown into that mix now. Now he's back.
Yeah, yeah.
There would be those kind of strikers I'd be looking at getting in around that because Watkins been pretty consistent as well. Obviously got 2 hard games coming up, but yeah, it's a great shout about that consistency piece.
You look as well at players. I mean, someone as well who gets overlooked because at times last season he was a bit of a joke player, wasn't he? The amount of chances is XG Jackson he was like last season at certain points. But I tell you what, he's really knuckled down. He's done really well this season. And again, in terms of consistency, 2-10, 6-1, 16-5, 2-6-9. He can't complain. 6 goals, 3 assists so far this season.
I
Um,
I like Nick Jackson.
look at that man.
He's just got a decent, really good attitude. When he was getting a lot of stick last year, he's similar a little bit to like Darwin Núñez. Probably do a little bit too much for the team. Probably a bit, like you saw a lot yesterday. Núñez just tracking back, helping out, helping the team out, and I feel like Nick Jackson does that a lot as well. And he's always a willing runner. So quite happy he's doing well. And don't forget, he's like still really young. Um, and he's keeping Nkunku out of the team. So that he's doing brilliant. But yeah, 7.9, just probably a bit too much again.
Yeah.
But yeah,
He
I've
falls right into that horrible bracket, doesn't he, where you
yeah,
can't afford him. Like you can only afford him probably if you don't have Haaland, because then you have
yeah.
Watkins, him, and then you go heavier in midfield with your Salah Palmer sort of situation, don't you?
And the thing is again, when you look at the form strikers, 6.4, 5.9, 5.4, 5.7, you're gonna have one of them. So you're not gonna have a Nicholas Jackson in there. So yeah, but yeah, could easily have him at some point in the season.
It is the season that I thought was going to be really difficult to afford players in because so many big premiums are there. But actually, so many of the enablers are performing really well. And actually, it almost feels like a hop on, hop off different premium rather than your mid range. It feels like you're just like, right, okay, well, I need Saka for those two. Then I'll transfer him out for Haaland, Palmer. Then I'll transfer him out then for De Bruyne. Then I'll bring him in Salah. And you feel like you're almost just planning your hop on, hop off for your premium midfielders rather than you are actually for anything else. In terms of defensive form as well, you can see the cheaper players are doing pretty well. See Keane with a couple of goals doing well. Guardiol and Eight Nuri are the two here right now. They're absolutely smashing it. Guardiol 9-1, 10-9. I mean, that's his last four. Eight Nuri has done 9-1, 9-9-1-6, 3 goals and an assist in his last four. And the fixtures are looking pretty good for him as well, with Palace and Southampton at home in the next two. There's no wonder that Eight Nuri is getting heavily, heavily bought at the moment. Alongside Guardiola, you look at like Young, Pinnock, Tarkowski. Young's actually, in terms of his returns, he got given the clean sheet because he got subbed off before Fulham scored. But then I think that was what happened anyway. No, he didn't. 90 minutes. Why did he get? Did he get an assist? Oh, got an assist. He got an assist. Sorry, got that wrong, everybody. Young got an assist, and then he got the 2 clean sheets before, and then he got an assist in the game when they didn't keep a clean sheet against Palace. 6-5, 6-6-6 for Ashley Young. So showing the consistency at 4.5 mil, and he's doing his punditry in the background as well. But there's been a big trend on your AI teams, your Twitter teams, this, that, and the other, of the right, you need an Arsenal defender. We've talked about this on the pod, haven't we? You need an Arsenal defender, you need a Liverpool defender, you need a City defender, and then that you're just going to set them and leave them. Baz made the point a while ago, and you made the point, was it last week or the week before? I think it was the week before when we were talking about the wild card special. You were like, you don't need two Arsenal defenders. You don't. They're not keeping, no one's keeping clean sheets. Scott, what's your take on this array of Everton, Wolves, Brentford, Villa, Brighton defenders that are all on here?
Yeah, I think that's where you want to be getting your picks from, really. Like I've this week because I wanted to get Visa in. There's a Visa, Visa. Can't
Visala.
speak. Can't speak. Um, I took Saliba out and I went for an Everton defender, Michael King. Like I said on last week's pod, I thought he would keep staying in the team, and he did. Um, no one's keeping clean sheets. Obviously, Liverpool have kept a few. No surprise they didn't keep one last yesterday. They were playing Arsenal, but still, no one's keeping them. So actually, there's no value. Even the City, I watched. So I watched the City highlights, and they were playing on paper, the worst team in the league this season. And these Cameron Archer still had a one-on-one that probably should have scored, and he hit the bar. So actually, like no one's getting anywhere. Like everyone, it's surprising to see City keep clean sheets. So yeah, for me, the value is is when we talk about, oh, how do we get Palmer, how do we get Saka in, how do we get Haaland and Salah? Well, actually, I think probably sacrificing a bit of money at the back is the way forward now at this present moment in time.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, if Gerald Kwanzaa is playing like he played 30 minutes, he played 45 minutes in the first game,
Mm.
you'd absolutely have him in. Or a Robertson gets injured and like
Simicast
Gomez
is free.
or
Yeah.
Tsimikas is free. You're absolutely having him in there, but there's no value. You're not getting Trent in. You're not getting Trent in. The future Ballon d'Or winner, Trent Alexander-Arnold.
What?
Um,
Sorry, that did make me laugh.
That's some bollocks on him saying that. Fair play. Don't mind
Yeah.
it. You're not getting Virgin, 6.1 million, too expensive. You're not getting Canate too expensive. So your value is around the defenders. Sean Dyche seems to have shored them up a bit at the back, conceded 1 goal in 3 games. So I feel like an Everton defender is needed, especially with their good run of fixtures coming up. Um, and then you're probably just looking at a couple of others there, but looking again at fixtures, I feel like for defenders, it's fixtures over form because you're looking at actually have they got a chance of getting a clean sheet, anything else as a bonus. You've not really got someone random that's smashing loads of assists from left back, but playing in the team like conceding every week, where you go, actually, they seem to be guaranteed an assist every week. So I think you look for the fixtures, you look for who might get you a clean sheet and go from there. That's my take anyway.
I just think someone like say 8 with Palace at home, Southampton at home, Fulham away, Bournemouth at home, Everton away, West Ham away, Ipswich at home, and then Leicester away. Um, sure, they're not keeping clean sheets, but he's scoring and assisting, and he's just again with the eye test. He's just always. He's almost. It's like he's in the box as a striker. Like he's getting on the end of things. I mean, he's the sort of player that I'm seriously looking at bringing in this week to help free up even maybe a little bit more money at the back. So I can spend some more money elsewhere and trying to get ahead, maybe even on the price changes, because I'm not too sure which sort of midfielder I'd want to bring in this week. And yeah, where I would spend a little bit of money, maybe. I mean, sorry, the final point on defenders I want to make is that, yeah, over the course of a whole season, the bigger teams with the top defenders are going to get the most points overall. That's just an obvious fact. There might be a couple of exceptions in there. RIP to Stuart Dallas, of course, in that career that he had. I mean, what an amazing season he had. John Lundstrom. There's always a few which we can look back on that were amazing. But like, yeah, generally at the end of the day, if you would like doing a set and forget team, you'd have the big players at the back because they're going to get the most points over the course of the season. But having that 5 to 7 player rotation at the back, like Barry always talks about, at the next wild card, is something that I think is absolutely what I'm going to be doing. And probably spending a little bit of money on just choosing that goalkeeper that I want to back and go behind. Whether that be Raya or whether it be Allison if he's back fit, something along those lines. When you look at the overall numbers for goalkeepers, Onana sells Sanchez. I mean, how's Sanchez up there? Goalkeeper points are a joke, man. They actually frustrate. Sanchez has looked so shaky this season and not great, but he's got save points. He's got a couple of clean sheets. Um, yeah, 2 clean sheets. That's it. It's West Ham and Bournemouth. I don't know. What's your thoughts on keepers, Scott? Keep it cheap or pick
Keep it
one
cheap.
premium.
Keep it keep it cheap and try and not get unlucky. I think a lot of people are similar to me and had Mr. Henderson on the bench for 8 points this weekend, which was a frustration one, especially when you got
Same.
Flecken at home to Ipswich. Surely that'll be all right. 3 goals later.
Well, the only
Thankfully, you got
clean
to keep.
sheet, the only clean sheets that were kept this weekend were Henderson at home to Spurs and City at home to Southampton. That was the only 2 clean
Yeah,
sheets.
yeah. There's just no one doing well enough. I don't think to warrant it. I think Sells again really pains me to like talk nicely about Forest like this, but I think Sells looks decent from 4.7 as well point of view. But yeah, just keeping for me, it's just keeping cheap. I say no one's keeping cheap anyway. Um, but Sells got an assist, so perfect.
It's true.
Did he get an assist?
I think he did
He
get
did. He
he got an
gave that
assist.
assist. I think
Yeah,
that's
an
such a
assist.
lucky assist. I was saying at the time, I was speaking to Cully and Martin at the time. It's Yonchu. Is it Yonchu? No, he
Yeah,
don't play.
no, not so.
No,
He's at Fenerbahce now.
he played against Man United.
Yeah,
No, Faz,
yeah,
he plays the ball.
yeah.
So how is that assist? That's
I
like
don't
really
know.
it really
It is
frustrates me. Like,
dodgy.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
dodgy that one. Yeah, I think the big consideration is: do you go for somebody like a Martinez and just set and forget him up until I don't know, maybe they save a goalkeeper transfer in game week 17? There's just a few things like that. I think sometimes we've got to got to consider and got to think about when it comes down to goalkeepers. But yeah, generally speaking, what I would say is keep it cheap and don't worry about it too much. Right, let's have another quick look at the fixtures. Let's do the fixtures for this weekend, shall we? And talk about who we are going to captain. I've missed a little bit out of here. Sorry, everybody who's listening and watching, because I did actually want to talk about AI very briefly. We've seen this season. Oh, and also goalkeeper rotation. That's another thing that I've got wrong. I've got 1 out of 9 so far this season. Well done, the guru. Pick rotating keepers and only get the right one once. Absolutely terrible. These decisions have been going against me. Yeah, in terms of the AI teams, so thank you to Guy Ferguson, who I know is a listener of the podcast every week. So thank you so much for your support as always, Guy. And you sent in a very interesting article by FPL Bateman, who I know divides a lot of opinion on Twitter as a person. But hey, listen, I don't get involved in any of that stuff. I never have done and never want to even really comment. But their advertising of their AI team is how you go get your AI transfers. They can think about it all for you. Their AI team overall, their live overall rank is 3.199 million. So 3.1 million. It's been really interesting to see how I think just because of how big AI was last year, everybody jumped on it. And everyone was like, right, no, AI is the way forward. It's so classic human nature. It makes me laugh all the time. It's the most classic human nature thing ever. It worked once last season, so we must all jump on it. And it is now the future. Well, don't get me wrong, it has a place. And it has a place where from time to time, it's going to really show things to the way you're going to do really well. I mean, I look at the AI pod team so far, and it had an absolutely fantastic month. It was sixth overall in the month of October, but its overall rank is still 1.3 million. And I don't know. I don't look at the team; it doesn't really excite me. Has it still got Eze in it? Yeah, for an example. I am a big believer in the fact that all these statistics on all this sort of stuff is really, really helpful and fun to help us analyze and fun to help us try and uncover potential gems and this, that, and the other. But for me, nothing has ever beaten the eye test, ever. Nothing has ever beaten watching football. And that is where, to be fair, since having two little humans in my life, I've watched a lot less football. And notably, my fantasy Premier League performance has dropped off. I just don't watch as many games because I just don't have as much maybe time to do it, or you're just doing other things. Um, Scott, what's your thoughts on AI versus eye test? We've discussed form, we discussed fixture, but to wrap up on that point, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It just depends what kind of fantasy football player you are. Especially, I know people that play fantasy football that don't really like football that much. They just have a work fantasy league, so they want to get involved and collaborate and be part of that conversation, I guess, because you don't a lot of time you don't want to be the one left out if everyone's chatting about it on a Monday. So I feel like this is when like an AI suggestion will actually be quite good because you just go by stats. So actually, you're not just going, "Oh, that person did really well last week. I'm going to bring them in," but then you're going to look stupid because they're playing Liverpool away, Man City away, Chelsea away. You can actually the AI will go actually they're on like decent form and they've got fixtures coming up. So I feel like it can be really good for those kind of people, but yeah, but for me, it's nothing beats an eye test. Like someone could get a couple of scrappy goals, but actually, how are they playing? How many chances are they missing? What positions are they getting? How's the overall team playing like? And then taking it to that next level, that's when like watching Match of the Day is really good because like you watch the analysis and they bring like pieces of information together. Or if you're really keen, you can watch Monday Night Football. They always have a really good chat at the beginning of that, every time as well. So it just depends. And for me, like I would never use AI suggestions because that's not the game for me. Like I get enjoyment out of picking a team and using my football knowledge,
Yeah.
rather than just trusting a robot. I know more about football than a robot, but I feel like it for some people it can be useful as a, I guess, more of a guide as well.
It's and I put in our little group we had earlier. I mean, it's just variance and human nature. Like, I mean, we look at, I mean, that the Haaland conversation on the triple captaincy, and we're going to just go on to captains now. But the XG expected goals for Haaland against Ipswich when he got 17 points was 1.79. His XG at home to Southampton was 2.17, and he only got 6 points. And he missed a couple of really big chances. He probably should have had a hat trick in the game, but that's so triple captaining Haaland this week wasn't a mistake. Like it wasn't. You didn't do anything wrong. Triple captain Haaland. That's what I'm telling myself before I go to bed at night. You didn't do anything wrong to triple captain Haaland this week. You were just unlucky. Like that was all it was. Just unlucky. You could have ran really good and had a top class Haaland on that day, and he puts in all of his chances. He scores 3 goals. You're absolutely laughing. Happy days. It's just the way it goes.
Hey, I think me and you and millions of others have captained someone in a double game week and they've returned 2 points and 2 points, which
Yep.
is less than what got Haaland. Haaland got in one game week. So it's not the end of the world. And you know what? Some people, Baz, will still have the
Mm.
triple captain because they want to use it for a double game week, which is fine, which is a choice that he's got. But Haaland might be injured. The big players that he's eyeing up might be injured from then. So it was absolutely the right time to use it. And only, watching the highlights, it's ridiculous how they get at least.
Yeah, it is. But what again, like people are this is one of the seasons where there'll be less double game weeks. So you'll have less opportunities to use it on doubles and a couple of the doubles that are projected aren't that great. So, there's a Southampton away in one of those double game weeks. So you never know. But yeah, it wasn't a mistake. It is just dumb luck, and that's just the way that it works out sometimes. In terms of captaincy and triple captain, and they haven't just had the obvious ones. Remember, I mean, the Salah double game week home game week 26 when he had two home fixtures against Norwich and Leeds like 2 years ago. And Rashford, I'm sorry to bring this one up, Scott, 2 years ago when you thought you got your triple captain, but you hadn't, like that 20-point double game week. There isn't obvious ones like those two. It's a little bit more complicated this year. But anyway, but there you are. So let's talk about captaincy for this week. Game week 10. Deadline is Saturday the 2nd of November at 11 o'clock. Crazy that it's November already, but there you go. Dark nights are rolling in. I much prefer playing football at the dark nights. That's my preference anyway. Cold, dark, rainy. That's how I enjoy my football. 11 o'clock. We've got Newcastle against Arsenal, the early kickoff. Then we've got Bournemouth City at 3 o'clock, Ipswich Leicester, Liverpool Brighton, Forest West Ham, and Southampton against Everton before a Wolves Crystal Palace Saturday evening game. Interesting match. Don't think I'll be tuning into that one. And then Super Sunday, we've got Spurs Villa and Man U Chelsea. That should be a cracking Super Sunday. And then Monday, we have got Fulham against Brentford on Monday Night Football.
That's such a Monday night football game, isn't it?
It really is a proper Monday Night Football game.
Yeah.
I think the Super Sunday looks fantastic, but can't imagine
I think
captaining anybody in those.
that Monday fixtures should be a good game as well. To be fair, I mean,
Should.
probably
Two
probably,
good teams.
probably won't be watching it. Never usually do on Monday nights because I play, but
Yeah.
yeah, probably good.
I'll be one of those where I'll be definitely watching back the highlights and recording the analysis to watch in my own time. Not the easiest for captaincy this week, I don't think. I look at it and think, well, okay, well, City against Bournemouth, Haaland, but Haaland's away, away from home. I mean, don't get me wrong, he did score his first ever City hat trick away from home this season. He has scored 1 goal this week on and two goals in the Champions League midweek. He'll probably be rested midweek because of the Carabao Cup. It looks a bit Haalandy. Uh, Scott, Is it a week
Like,
maybe for a bit of a wild captaincy choice?
could be. Mine's on Salah, to be honest with you. I think Brighton at home is quite a nice fixture, to be fair. Haaland in the Premier League has not really been on form. Obviously we just said he could have had a hat trick. Could be in the word, right? So
Yeah.
he hit a really nice couple of goals in midweek. But yeah, it's definitely a bit of a trickier one. There's no other teams like a Villa you'd usually look at and go, oh yeah, maybe like a Watkins or someone. Tricky fixture. Again, we talk about Brentford, tricky fixture away at Fulham. So the one that honestly that stands out for me, and then you do the thing where you go, actually, who are Southampton, who are Ipswich playing? Okay, Southampton, Everton. You're not going to be captaining Everton players, and you're not going to be captaining any Leicester players. Two massive games, by the way,
Big
towards the bottom of
games.
the table.
Yeah, big
Um,
games.
so for me, yeah, it's a Salah captain. I know some people don't have Salah. It's actually where you're looking. Then you're probably just going to sit your captain's armband on Haaland. Um, I think they're the two really, but I think Salah's the standout for me this week.
Would you look at somebody maybe like Chris Wood, Nottingham Forest at home to West Ham?
Yeah, yeah, and this is one of these where we go where it's usually Baz in it, but he says something and he never does it. And
Yeah.
he'll go something ridiculous like, yeah, maybe Strand Larson at home to Palace, but actually,
Yeah.
Chris Wood is an absolute a viable option. I feel like this is going to sound maybe a bit silly. I feel like it's Salah and then it's close between Haaland and Chris Wood. You can capture that for like next week when Chris Wood blanked and Haaland gets five.
I'm going to put that as my clip on my reel. It's close between Haaland and Wood. Well, in terms of predicted points, so we're going to throw the AI in here now. Salah is top 8.1 points predicted for the game against Brighton. Haaland at 7.7, and then Palmer at 7 against Manchester United. Saka actually with 6.7 is predicted against next. And then actually underneath them, funnily enough, is Raul Jimenez predicted 5.7. So yes, interesting point. Yeah, Haaland, Salah again. But they're just ones that are most trustworthy, aren't they? I mean, I know it sounds a bit boring, but they are just the most trustworthy choices when it comes down to these games. Also, they'll have had rests midweek. Salah at Anfield again. It feels right. It feels good. I feel like City maybe playing Bournemouth. I feel like Iraola might be a little bit less responsible at the back. Um, What's Bournemouth's home form? Let me just have a really quick look at that whilst I'm having a gander here. Bournemouth's home form, ninth in the league in terms of home form. They've won two, drawn one, lost one, and they've only conceded 3 goals at home in 4 games this season. Interesting. Probably Salah, isn't it?
Yeah,
Don't think I missed anything, Scott. You wouldn't know
no,
anyway.
no idea.
Well, thanks for joining me. It's been great. I've enjoyed our chat, and it'd be nice to have Barry back to say some absolutely crazy things that he'll never do next week. I'm really looking forward to it. Mr. Differential himself. It'd be good to have you back, Barry. And thanks to everybody as well who's contributed and thrown some bits and bats our way. And Guy for sending over a couple of things for the podcast. Had a couple of other conversations with people this week as well who have said, talk about this and talk about that, and we really appreciate it. So thank you ever so much for everyone for contributing. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to give us 5 stars where you get podcasts from. Do not forget also to follow us on our social media platforms so I can clip up Scott saying that Chris Wood is just as good a captain shout as Erling Haaland for this week on All in Football Pod and All in Football P, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Scott, I'll see you later on for a kickabout.
Yeah, try and get a W, mate.
Let's get a W, and goodbye for now.